conference this morning. As many of you know, the program is designed to connect our members and to drive business. It provides us an opportunity to hear updates pertaining to regional and statewide issues that can affect our local economy. We're excited today to hear from a panel of professionals on surviving and thriving during a time of rapid change and adversity. Our discussion will explore the practical ways we can protect our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. We would also like to give a special thanks to our sponsors today, Merit Health Wesley and Southern Behavioral Medicine Associates. Before we get started, Mike Dixon of the Pine Belt Foundation will offer the invocation, and he'll be followed by Matthew Banks and with Merit Health Wesley, who will give some sponsor remarks. So Mike, please.
Thanks, Hoppy. We all please pray with me. Our gracious God, we humbly ask for your help in our community and in our country. Lord, there is so much in need of your healing right now. God, we confess that we so often fall short of being the people we were created to be. Lord, we confess to the sins of choosing politics over people and prejudice over equity, or choosing fear over love and power over humility and violence over sacrifice. And so, God, we ask that you forgive us for failing to bring your kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven, for failing to see your image in one another, and for giving our lives to our own kingdoms rather than yours. Today we pray for your healing in our own souls and in the broken systems we have created. God, give us hearts filled with nothing other than your love. Grant us your peace, grant us your mercy, grant us your hope, and sustain us in all things by your loving grace. And it is in your holy name we pray all these things. Amen.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to partner with the ADP today and putting this panel together. It's really such a timely event for us here in the healthcare sector. Right now at our hospital, we've really been focusing on trying to understand what our new normal is out there, and really trying to support our employees through that new normal, not just in the walls of the hospital, but also as they transition home out there as well. I really look forward to today's panel. We're appreciative of the opportunity. I look forward to hearing from my friend and my pastor, Jeff Clark, and thank you for the opportunity again today.
Good morning. I'm Alan Anderson, Chamber Chair with the ADP, Chamber Division Chair. Today, I'm very honored to announce and welcome some of our newest members, the Global Green Insurance Agency, the BKPTV Studio, and Preservation Crossing. To find out more about our new members, please be sure and visit the adp.com to view their member listing, along with finding and following their social media and website pages. Before moving forward, we also have a few announcements. Monday, June 8th will be a virtual legislative forum, session 2. That'll be 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. To register, visit the adp.com/calendar. Small Business Leadership Award Luncheon will be virtual also, and that's on Wednesday, June 24th. At 11:30 to 1 o'clock. The speaker that day will be Representative Kent McCarty. Completed nominations should be submitted by Wednesday, June 10th at 5 p.m. and submit them to info@theadp.com. And to purchase a virtual table, contact Dr. Lynn Houston at lhouston@wmcarey.edu. or call her at 601-318-6231. And I know she'd love to hear from a lot of us there. The Membership Appreciation Day is Friday, July 17th. And praise God, maybe we'll be back together at Southern Oaks, 11:30 to 1 o'clock. Congressman Palazzo will be our speaker. That'll be at the Southern Oaks. To register, visit theadp.com/calendar. Sponsored by Hattiesburg Coca-Cola and Cooperative Energy. Thursday, September 17th is the ADP Corporate Golf Challenge, and there'll be two starting times that day at the Timberton Golf Club, and corporate teams and sponsorships are still available. And now we have Dr. Geralyn Datz, Southern Behavioral Medicine Associates, who will provide sponsor remarks.
Good morning. I'm the president of Southern Behavioral Medicine, and we are really happy to be sponsors of the event this morning. It's a really timely and important time. I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to explain a little bit of our role. We've been really active during the pandemic, during the last 3 months. We've been in the Pine Belt since 2011. We are a health and general psychology practice, and the majority of our patients are using their medical insurance to come see us. And you might wonder a little bit about what is health psychology or general psychology. And what we do is we basically help individuals who have medical and mental health distress. So individuals might have something like chronic pain or an injury, or just have difficulty losing weight or something of that nature. And we address those issues along with the things that would usually be addressed for mental health, things like depression, anxiety, and other issues. We're located in Midtown Hattiesburg, and we also have a satellite location in Jackson. We provide services to other states such as Alabama and Louisiana. And we've been also offering telehealth throughout the pandemic. I think you might know that President Trump signed an executive order that allowed all medical providers and healthcare providers to offer telehealth services. So we've been doing that, and currently we're doing telehealth and in-person services now that some of those restrictions have been lifted. So that makes it easier for people who are staying at home or have children or are working from home. So a brief overview of our services. That next slide. We help employers as well as employees. We do evaluations for things like fit for duty and return to work after an injury, but also testing of many different kinds like attention deficit disorder testing. We do a lot of neuropsychological testing for memory issues and concussions, and for elderly folks who might be wondering if they have memory loss related to aging. We also treat issues like addiction and perform pre-surgical evaluations. And with respect to the treatments that we offer, as I mentioned, we treat depression and anxiety and panic attacks. And these can be in mild forms. I think during the pandemic, a lot of people have experienced stress and anxiety and fear, anger, loneliness. And then sometimes these symptoms, of course, become more serious, and they could lead to dark thoughts or suicidal thoughts, or lead to life transitions like unemployment or retirement. And so we address all of those things. And another thing that we're offering is some group employee education, which is becoming more popular around the time of the pandemic, where we can come into an employer's workplace and talk to employees in a group about stress or stress management techniques. Our providers are pretty diverse. As you'll see, we're psychologists, social workers, licensed professional counselors, and we have a lot of different perspectives, which is helpful. So that's just a little bit about what we do. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be happy to chat with you.
Thank you, Dr. Datz. Well, good morning, guys. I'm Chad Newell, president of the Area Development Partnership, and I am so excited that you have taken 1 hour out of your day today to join us for this exciting panel discussion. It is entitled, "Don't Ignore the Warning Signs, How to Survive and Thrive During COVID-19. You know, when I started thinking about the need for this panel back in the April timeframe, and we put the panel together in early May, we knew that we were, of course, in the middle of a pandemic, a recession, What we did not know at the time is that we were also going to have an inordinate level of racial strife around the country. And so, guys, we are all grappling with so much. And, you know, as Dr. Datz said, we are trying to process it and make sense of it and make sure that we have the empathy and sympathy for others and that we are there for others. But really, in order to be able to be there for others, we have to be there for ourselves as well. You know, I think it is of paramount importance that we focus on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. All of those elements, if you think about it in your own personal lives, if you have one of those elements out of whack, out of sync, guess what? Everything else is thrown off. You're kind of thrown for a loop. You're not clicking on all cylinders, as I like to say. So again, I can't think of a time in our nation's history when a panel discussion such as this would be more timely. So without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. Dr. Datz, who you just heard from. Dr. Datz, thank you so much for joining us on the panel today. She, of course, is a clinical psychologist with Southern Behavioral, and thank you again for sponsoring today as well. You know, Dr. Datz is basically a small business owner, a member of the ADP, and she is not only stepping up to participate today, but to help sponsor the program. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So we have two of our wonderful pastors from the area, from the Pine Belt, on the panel today. And really, they are pastors of two of our largest churches here in South Mississippi. So we are excited to have Pastor Marcus Cathey, the senior pastor with West Point Baptist Church. Pastor Cathey, thank you for joining us, sir. And then, as Matthew Banks said earlier, his pastor, well, Jeff Clark is also my pastor. So, Jeff, you got a heavy burden, buddy. We are so glad to have Pastor Jeff Clark with Venture Church on as a panelist as well. And then last but not least, we do need to, as you can tell by looking at me on the video today, I need to work on this physical side of the equation and hit the gym. But we are elated to have Matt Lee, a coach with Versus Strength and Conditioning on the panel as well. So guys, it's about 11:17. We're going to jump in for about the next 40 minutes and have a really good, fruitful discussion that I hope and pray will be beneficial to you personally. As I like to say, we want you to, at the ADP, we want you to grow personally so that you can flourish professionally. So Matt, we're going to jump right in with a question for you. We'll start off with the physical fitness side. So Matt, physical activity is so important. I feel so much better, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally too, when I take the time to exercise. During these hectic times, it's even more important to exercise. Matt, from your perspective, talk a little bit about the importance of physical activity, and then what are the primary benefits?
Well, I know, like, for me in times like this, it's a good way to like dump off the stress, like flush it out of your system. Had a bad day, work didn't go the way you wanted to. It's a good way to just go in and move and almost kind of like sweat the funk off. It releases all those happy little brain chemicals. Geralyn can probably tell you a little bit more about that than I can, but it releases all those little happy brain chemicals that make you feel good. And especially like right now, when I think it's one of those things right now that when so many things are out of our control, it's something we can control. We can check a box. We can get the feeling of accomplishment. You know, we can go outside and go for a walk. We can do some sit-ups, some push-ups at our house, just something to move, and we can check that box, and it makes us feel better, makes us happy. You know, as far as health stuff goes, all the health markers, you know, diabetes, blood pressure, literally just like going on walks every day will lower your resting heart rate. It also gets your body clock, your circadian rhythms reset, which also controls your hormonal releases throughout the day, helps you sleep better at night, all those good things. And right now, when people are doing so many things they're not used to, and they have these extra off-the-wall stressors coming in, being able to put your head down at night and go to sleep and get good sleep kind of refills that bucket so you can kind of pour into the people around you the next day that you need to do. So, I mean, all the benefits of just like, really just like getting all that junk off and just releasing it and eliminating it from your day and sweating and feeling good and just feeling like you accomplished something is probably the biggest thing right now.
That's awesome. I know, again, I feel so much better when I exercise. I took my chocolate lab out on a little 2-mile jog this morning, and I feel much better than I would have otherwise. It helps me mentally, not only physically. Matt, let's stick with you for a follow-up question here. So, as a follow-up, let's be honest. Some of us are a bit intimidated by gyms and high-intensity workouts. I hear some of these workouts sometimes, the Murph and all these things. I'm like, wow, I don't even really know what that means, but I'm already a little intimidated by it. So talk about a few tips for the novice who just hasn't done much physically in a long time. So how do you get started with physical activity?
I mean, really just move. Like, that's the big deal. Just move and go for a walk. Going for a walk is one of the most underrated things that people don't do. It's like this perfect little special place where your body's not too stressed, but it's still getting benefits of moving at the same time. Simple body weight stuff at your house. Like I said, push-ups, sit-ups, squats, lunges. It doesn't have to be complicated. You just got to start. You got to be willing to start and move. Like a simple, I've had people ask me kind of a simple at-home thing to do right now. And one of the simplest things I tell them to do is it's called a 10-to-1 ladder. You pick 2 or 3 body weight movements. You do like 10 of each, 9 of each, 8 of each, 7 each, on down through 1. If you want to, you can add a little bit of maybe a short run or some jump rope or some jumping jacks at the end. And it just gets the blood flowing. It takes like 20 minutes and you feel better when you're done. It's a simple way to get moving. As far as the intimidation thing goes, I know we've all been there. And a lot of times it's just being willing to walk in the room. I know what we do with class style gyms, and there's lots of good class style gyms around Hattiesburg. All the coaches and trainers are trained to kind of meet you where you're at and take you where you're at to where you want to be. Murph doesn't have to be intimidating. It can be scaled down to wherever you're at. And so the big deal is just kind of stepping in the door. The question I get all the time is, hey, I'm going to get in shape a little bit and then I'll come see you. So when I was a kid, funny the things you remember. When I was a kid, my mom had these cassette tapes of this Christian comedian. I think his name was like Mike Warnke. And in one of the cassettes, he's at an airport witnessing to somebody. And the guy says, hey man, as soon as I clean up my life a little bit, I'll come to church. And his response was, do you have to get cleaned up to take a bath? And that's kind of as simple as I can make it. Like, you don't have to do anything. You just have to show up and try, and it'll start happening. And just keep trying. That's kind of the simplest way I can put it.
That's awesome, Matt. Good, great advice there. And you're right, because some evenings I'll be like, oh, this couch feels so good. I want to get up. But boy, if I get up and go on a little walk, I feel so much better. And my family feels a lot better too, because I after I exercise. So, all right, let's, Dr. Datz, we're going to transition over to the mental and emotional side of the equation. So, Dr. Datz, during the pandemic, it has been increasingly difficult to maintain our mental and emotional well-being. We are often stressed, anxious, and just worried in general. Sometimes we've turned to food, alcohol, drugs, sex, technology, etc., as ways to cope and escape. As a practicing psychologist, what are you seeing during these unprecedented times, and what are some helpful tips to remain mentally and emotionally sound?
I would say we're seeing a lot during these times. As I mentioned, we've been really active throughout the pandemic. Actually, we've not closed. So we were essential, even though we were doing telehealth. And that was interesting too, because many people hadn't experienced that, and teaching people how to use technology for their own self-care. But we see a lot of emotional coping. And the quarantine 15 is real. And I actually saw a town that started a whole initiative about the quarantine 15 to lose weight and to work together as a community. I think when people are forced into their homes and structure is taken away and meaning and purpose is taken away, which a lot of people identify with work and feeling useful and feeling like agents of their own destiny, that helplessness kind of turns us into, kind of some of our base characteristics. We are kind of gluttonly, and we can be kind of lazy and misdirected. And then when you couple that with the information overload that was occurring, I know for myself, at 2 a.m. every night, I was sort of taking an inventory of the wreckage during, the coronavirus via social media. And it was really disrupting my sleep patterns. And I think a lot of people are having a lot of fear, fear about what if, illness, what about my job, what about the future. And so, my advice to people is, first off, it's okay not to be okay. These are unprecedented times. There is no roadmap. No one taught us how to deal with this. And I think you really have to be compassionate to yourself and lower your expectations. If it feels that hard, then it is hard. And holding yourself to a standard that you can't achieve is only going to make you feel worse. And I agree with Matt. A lot of times it's just small steps. In the beginning, we were just telling people, just accomplish one thing today, just one thing, or do something for yourself today. Get some fresh air, get outside. Then there's kind of another group of people, I think, that took the pandemic as an opportunity to get things done. I don't think I ever heard more saws or hammers in my entire life than during the pandemic. And so I think a lot of people channeled that into motivation to do things that maybe they don't get to do. I saw a lot more, people eating at home, cooking at home, reprioritizing family, friends, faith. I think there are some good things that come out of this. I see people being more compassionate to each other, saying things like stay safe and being understanding if somebody misses a deadline or oversleeps. Like, I think it's led to a lot of forgiveness. And I think that's a good thing, and we need to keep that.
That's awesome. Great tips there, and it makes me think of, I think when I think of the word grace, is grace easy to receive, but hard to give. And so I'm hopeful and prayerful that during this time, we do have more grace for people, because we need it for sure. So before I jump over to our two pastors, I do want to remind all of our participants, there's a Q&A section at the bottom. Please click on Q&A, pose your questions as we near the end, when we get to the last 10 or 15 minutes. So yes, you have to stay online here with us. We are going to take some questions from the audience. So again, thank you to all of our participants. Okay, Pastor Cathey, I'm coming around the horn over to you here, sir. So the spiritual side is so important to a person's overall well-being. During this time, we must have faith that is stronger than our fears. God is still at the helm. Why is our faith so important in helping us navigate through the pandemic and racial strife and all of these things that we are grappling with as a nation?
Chad, thanks for having me a part of this panel. The pandemic, the racial tension, and all that's going on in our country has really revealed our vulnerability. And what faith does, for me, it does three things. Having faith is a reminder. It reminds me of who God is. And when I'm feeling vulnerable, when I'm feeling shaky, my faith reminds me that God is present. Reminds me that not only is he present, but that God, he's perceptive. He knows. He's not caught off guard. Faith tells me that before I knew, God knew. And also it reminds me that he's powerful, that God is able to handle my day to day. He's the creator of the world, but he's also able to handle me in this day. And so faith is a reminder.
That's awesome. Great tips there. Pastor Jeff, would you have anything to add to that question? We're going to tag team these pastor questions here.
I think the challenge that we've faced in this is finding out where we actually put our faith. because, you know, your faith is only as durable as what you put your faith in. And I think for a lot of people, including me, because you don't realize you're doing this, when you put your faith in your job, or you put your faith in the economy, or you put your faith in anything finite, it's just a matter of time before you're disappointed. And I think it's a time to reevaluate faith. Like, if I'm really tense and anxious, maybe I have put my faith in something that's not durable. And so it's an opportunity, and it's a lot like AA. Even if you don't understand everything about God, it's time to realize He's infinite. All the things that Marcus said, you know, He's bigger than us, and He's bigger than our job, and He's bigger than the economy, and He's bigger than our restaurants. And maybe, you know, I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I love all this. I think I'm challenged by it. I think it's an opportunity to revisit where we are actually putting our faith. And this is a time, if you've not had faith, to begin, because this is a chance for you to really figure out what's important. And maybe if your little God is a travel ball, maybe there's a bigger God than that. Now, I know I'm getting off on shaky ground talking about little league. Maybe there's something bigger. Marcus, I'm going to shoot it over back to you. Yeah, I said too much.
Guys, that's great. You know, look at, you know, it's like faith. Hey, we don't need faith plus 5 other things. I mean, if our faith is in God, that's a solid rock there. So, all right, Pastor Jeff, we're actually going to let you continue to keep talking. I've got this next question for you here. So we're going to stay with you for a minute. So, you know, I certainly pray that our relationships are strengthened and that we rely even more on God's guidance during these challenging times. However, some people may be angry at God and wondering why He is allowing this to occur. So what would you say to someone who is angry and questioning their faith during these very turbulent times?
But one thing, God can handle you being angry. I think one of the things that we sometimes miss is, and I think Dr. Datz said this, you know, sometimes we're too hard on ourselves. I mean, you look through the Bible and a lot of great men questioned God and were angry with God, including Moses and Elijah, you know, Peter, you know, you can go through the whole Bible. And the reason we're angry is because there's so much we don't know. And the thing that helps me, because I've been angry at God a lot of different seasons in my life. My wife got cancer, you know, Katrina. I mean, I could go through. But the reality is the story's not finished. You know, it's okay to be angry, but you can't. If you want to stay there, you're going to miss out on a blessing, because God is still writing the story. And I happen to believe that it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be anxious. It's okay to go through all those stages of grief. And that's what anger is. It's a stage of grief. I'm sorry, I'm getting over in the psychology part of it. But if you can hang on to your faith, maybe God is about to do something better than He's ever done in your life. Maybe for the first time, you're open to something because something is dying and God is birthing something brand new that's going to change the way you see everything. I know one thing right now, the way I see Crescent City Restaurant is different. It's manna. That's manna for me now. I mean, you know, so you know, I'm seeing things different. You know, I'm seeing my family different. You know, I'm seeing my church different. I'm seeing, you know, my finances different. And at the end of the day, if we have another rolling crisis, and I want to do a little, hand it over to Marcus, a little shouting ground, but our God is able.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Pastor Cathey, before I want you to follow up on that question too. But it made me think when Pastor Jeff was talking that the way I put it too, because boy, I've had times on the mountaintop, I've had times in the valley, and I think we're all kind of in a valley right now. But guess what? If and then there are a lot of days right in the middle. But boy, if you're in that valley, as I say, you're laying flat on your back, looking straight up at God. So get up, dust yourself off, and start climbing. But okay, hey, you didn't know I was going to preach too today, did you? So, Pastor Cathey, I will turn it over to you. What are your thoughts about this topic here?
Dad, you're doing good with the preaching. Listen, when we're hurt and there's pain in our lives, it becomes really, really easy to play the blame game, to point the finger. And I concur with Jeff that God can handle our anger. But people of faith understand that at the core of our faith is suffering, and that Jesus died on a cross, suffering. And in fact, after that, he said in the Gospel of John, I think it's chapter 16, he told us that in this world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer because I've overcome. And so when I like to tell people, instead of pointing the finger or being angry, let's try to find the message. Mm-hmm. Instead of the why me, let's look for the what. What am I to get out of this? How am I to grow from this?
Awesome. Great insight. Great advice there. That is great. Let's circle back around to you, Matt. We'll get back on kind of some of the physical fitness side of things. I often, sometimes, if I can get like my daughter or somebody to go walk with me or go jog with me, it's a little bit easier for me. So, do you feel like it's good, Matt, to have that workout partner, someone who can hold you accountable? And as a follow-up, how important is it to have goals to shoot for, and what could some of those look like?
Oh yeah, we definitely believe in group accountability. That's kind of how our whole program works, is group accountability. But I've heard it said, I'm sure we've all heard it, that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time around. So you probably need to line up with people who are kind of trying to go the same direction as you, certain areas of your life. And if fitness and health is one of the areas you're trying to go, find a couple of friends who are trying to go the same direction. Because there's going to be days when you don't want to do it, and they can be there for you. And there's going to be days when they don't want to do it, and you can return the favor. Definitely group accountability, somebody just checking on you for all sorts of stuff right now. Just somebody checking on you to make sure you're all right in all areas of your life. And where we're at, health and fitness is definitely a big important thing. As far as goals goes, goals are awesome. The big deal is if you have like a giant goal, you want to lose 75 pounds or climb Mount Everest or become CEO of the company, is to back it down into small, more manageable goals, the process to get there. Lose 10 pounds at a time, check that 10-pound box, go to the next 10-pound box, check that box, build some momentum, snowball effect. Checking those little boxes makes you feel better about yourself. You've accomplished something. It helps build that momentum. And like they've said before, if you don't hit a goal or you miss something up, don't beat yourself up. The big deal is it's not that your goal was flawed. It was your process to get your goal was flawed. So go back and check your process, tweak the process. The story on Thomas Edison is it took him 1,000 times to get the filament right for the light bulb. And somebody asked him how it felt to fail 1,000 times. He said, I didn't fail 1,000 times. He said, I learned 1,000 ways to not make a light bulb. So tweak your process. Like if you don't hit that goal, well, what should I have done a little bit differently? Go back, start over, and just keep trying. If you keep trying, you'll keep checking off little small victories, and victories build momentum. And we keep winning little battles, we'll win the war of whatever our goal is, no matter how big it is.
That's great, man. Good advice there. So obviously during this pandemic, not only do we have a healthcare crisis, but we have a financial crisis. A lot of people are really struggling financially. The unemployment rate is, higher than it's been since the Great Depression. And those of us who are employed, we're still a little bit nervous about our jobs and livelihoods and what comes next, a little bit of that anxiety and fear. And so Matt, what would you say? Of course, we want everybody to join Versus and all ADP member gyms. But for those folks who are really struggling a little bit financially right now, what would you offer them? What can they do at home that would be good for them to do?
Well, like I've kind of already touched on, just, move your own body. Like manipulating your own body weight will take you a long way. Just ask anybody how hard it is to do a pull-up. I mean, just get out and move.
Right.
Start walking, turn it into a little bit of running, a little bit of walking. Like I said before, the little 10-to-1 body weight ladder. As far as like cheaper options to kind of get moving, jump ropes. You can find jump ropes at like TJ Maxx for $5, like at Academy for under 20. And you can buy, if you have a little bit of more income to use, you can buy one dumbbell or one kettlebell, and then just hop on Google. Like, yes, I want everybody to join Versus. It's not a reality. Hop on Google, Instagram. They have people that post all sorts of workouts all the time that are giving out content, especially right now, giving out content, tell people to take care of themselves. The information is out there, but just your body and some just simple little light, cheap pieces of equipment can get you a long way.
That's awesome. Well, I tell you, I'm doing a little bit on the physical side. I say I go on jogs. Really, they're fast walks. Let's be honest. I mean, I don't think I've broken an 11-minute mile in a long time.
All right.
But and then I'll play a little tennis with my youngest son. But I need to hit the gym and get with some weights. Say I need to do that. I know. So look, good stuff there. That's awesome. Dr. Datz, let's circle back with you. And boy, I've got kind of a multifaceted question here. So there's a lot wrapped up in this, but we'll give it a whirl here. So as servanthood leaders, we want to be there for our families, friends, and colleagues. Many people are struggling in various ways, including with anxiety and depression, panic attacks, etc. So what are some of those key warning signs to watch for to hopefully see these issues arising? And then if someone is already there, how do we climb out of it? So we'll tackle that part of the question first.
Yeah, great question. Some of the warning signs are things like crying, sadness, avoiding people or phone calls, isolating in a back room, and, changes in sleeping, eating behaviors, really changes in personality. A lot of times we'll see irritability emerge as like a lot of impatience or kind of perfectionism. And those can be really big challenges in terms of how to overcome those symptoms alone. So one of the big things is reaching out for help. The way that we build resilience is basically through contact with other people. That might be a professional. So like at our clinic, we offer psychotherapy, and I think people would be surprised how quickly you can turn around some emotional symptoms with just a few structured sessions. And then, for more serious symptoms, when you mentioned depression, it's like depression could be a down mood, but it also could be a suicidal thought, or it could be chemical coping, like you mentioned, addiction, or, coping with drugs or alcohol. And so those things require support. And I think some people see that as weakness, and there's a stigma attached with that to some people, but in other realms, it's understandable. I believe I have God-given gifts, and these gifts were meant to be shared with other people. And that's the way we work with individuals, through a collaboration. And so I think the main way families can be supportive is to encourage people to seek help, seek faith, seek community, and profession, maybe a mental health or medical consultation if they need it.
That's awesome. So along the lines here, let's stay on this topic. So, some people may be too ashamed to admit that they are experiencing problems. What advice would you offer people and families experiencing the pain associated with some sort of addiction, mental or emotional trauma? And then how do you help people overcome the denial, guilt, and shame associated with various challenges?
That's a great question. My first thought is that shame, guilt, and denial only lead to more suffering. you know. And often I'll tell people, if the thoughts that you're thinking, if I had to spend time in your head, if you were to sell the real estate in your head, would anybody buy it? You know, when those thoughts are dragging you down, that is not taking you in a positive direction. That's the first sign. And so those thoughts are understandable. Of course, you know, it's understandable that people would feel shame or guilt when they're not living up to their own expectations or other people's expectations, but it's not a healthy way of coping. And so kind of circling back to what I was saying about professional help or building community or using faith, you know, you need to reach outside yourself, because don't underestimate the power of these thoughts. You know, our thoughts are, you know, the most powerful things that we have. The brain is, you know, we think something like 80,000 thoughts a second. We're processing information at such a great speed. And, you know, professional therapists know about analyzing thoughts. And if you trust the person, they can give you some honest feedback about how to challenge those thoughts, overcome them, look at your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors in a way that's constructive and not critical, not judging yourself, but just kind of almost like in a scientific way, like, wow, I never realized I do that when this happens. I eat when I feel overwhelmed. When I'm lonely, I get angry. And making different connections and inviting yourself to try on new behaviors is really important.
That's great. And, you know, I read a lot of leadership books and watch a lot of leadership speakers. And one of my favorite leadership authors is a guy named John Gordon. And really, he is kind of the Mr. Positivity. And, you know, some people take a lot of shots at John because they're like, oh, you're just so positive. Nobody's that positive. And he's like, look, I have days when I'm down, I'm fearful, I'm down in the dumps. But if, to your point, Dr. Datz, if we get up and tell ourselves that we're going to have a good day, we are going to treat others the way we want to be treated, and we're going to be positive, there's a high likelihood, I think, that our day is going to be better than if we didn't tell ourselves that. So I have to coach myself up all the time. There's a lot of merit in that. Okay, Pastor Cathey, we'll swing back around over here to you. Maneuvering through the crisis can be very taxing personally and relationally. During these stressful times, it's easy to make stupid mistakes that can have catastrophic consequences on us personally and negatively impact our families and our future. How does leaning on God for wisdom and discernment help us survive and thrive during the pandemic and post-pandemic? And how do we best avoid life's pitfalls that can lure us in during these weak moments? You know, Andy Stanley uses the term guardrails. I remind myself of that all of the time. You know, I'm bad about getting a tire in the ditch, but I don't want to get my whole car in the ditch and flip it over. Because sometimes these mistakes we make, they can be pretty catastrophic for ourselves and our family. So what are your thoughts related to those topics?
Chad, I heard about 3 questions, so I'm gonna say one. Well,
since we only had 15 minutes, I decided to just hit you with all 3.
Gotcha. Man, faith not only reminds me of who God is, but faith refocuses me on what I'm called to do. And so when I get my mind and my heart straight with what God has called me to do, what He's put me on this earth to do, then I say to people that having God's wisdom in your everyday life is just vital. And I encourage the people that are connected with our church that they ought to have a growing relationship with God through His Word, and that's on a daily basis. Spending time with God's Word, getting those instructions. I like to say that the Bible, God's Word, is an instruction book for life. And many of us are not living our best lives because we spend very little time with the instruction book. So having time with God every day, spending time in His words, and the guardrails thing that you mentioned, I would encourage somebody to have a daily prayer life, praying daily. It's very, very important. Also, partnering, having somebody that can hold you accountable or that you are accountable to. And this person needs to be somebody that's not intimidated or impressed by you. Somebody that can ask you, how are you really? And ask you real questions. I don't remember the last thing you asked. Did I answer you?
You did. You did a marvelous job summarizing it. Look, again, I got to remind myself often, hey, look, when I'm struggling, don't look in all these other ways first. Let's get back to the Word and pray. I tell my team and I tell everybody that, like, on days when I have something important happening, like today, I viewed this as very important. I went out and jogged my dog. I prayed. I rested. And then I came in fresh. And because I think if we're going to bring our best game for our families and our colleagues and everybody that we're trying to serve, we've got to be healthy as well. So great advice, Pastor Cathey. Pastor Jeff, would you like to chime in there and add a little?
I have to be careful because I love talking. And I know we got limited time, and there's so many smart people on here, and I just love it. I wish we could just hang out and talk. I would say back to Dr. Datz and the shame, we deal with that in the church. And one of the things that we say at Venture is nothing good grows in the dark. That until you get it into the light, it has very little chance of being healed. And you'd be surprised how hard it is for Christians to admit they struggle. And so one of the things that we've done, can I do a shameless plug?
Sure.
Because one of the things that, I'm so sorry, but one of the things that we've tried to do is help people have self-awareness, because it's hard to know where to put the guardrail if you don't know that's an area that you need a guardrail in. And so a few months ago, we did a whole series on the Enneagram, which is basically, the DISC profile. It's an updated, cooler version of kind of understanding who you are, so that you know what your area is. Like, I'm an 8, so my area, and this is hard to say because I don't know how many people are watching this, but my core sin is lust, not just sex or food or whatever, so I have to realize, I have to have a boundary. Like, I can't walk into a buffet and then quote Paul out of context and say, I'm going to buffet my body. I mean, so, and we did a whole series. You can go and look at it, because we do 1 through 9, and it has the, a biblical character, their core sin, their core value, and how you can overcome these things. Because if you don't know what your deal is, you're going to have a hard time setting up a defensive mechanism so that you can have victory there. Most people are just ignorant about themselves.
That's great.
Can I say that over the worldwide?
Hey, I'm accustomed to it. I hear you say stuff like that.
I know, but and so is Marcus, but and so is Matt. But it's just like we tend to ignore these glaring issues in our hearts that everybody else sees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's hard to deal with it until you're going like, hey, I think that's an issue.
Yeah. And hey, I'm right there too in my walk. It's hard. Hey, usually though, my wife has a way of getting me to understand that I've got that problem, even when I know I've got it and I'm not voicing it. She just comes out and lets me know. So she's a hard guardrail for me. I kind of bounce off that guardrail sometimes. But anyway, okay, I think she's on this video, so she may be like,
she's amazing
right now. So okay, look. I wish we had time for more of all these other questions that I spent a lot of time preparing, but what I would rather do in the last few minutes here is take questions from the participants, because at the end of the day, that's who we're here serving. And so I'm looking at a question here from Sean Graham. It says, what would you suggest faith leaders and business leaders do to encourage people to seek mental health counseling during this time, especially in the African American community, teens and young adults who are more reluctant to seek help? So really, anybody who wants to chime in there, maybe Dr. Datz, you could start us off, and then anybody else who wants to chime in there.
Thank you, Sean, for that question, because that is a huge issue. And I can say that we have seen many attendees of both pastors' congregations that are on today, and many others. And some people come openly, and some people really struggle. And I think there's a message sometimes in individual cultures, and we know in the African American community, there are challenges with mental health seeking that are real. You know, there are stigmas that happen, and there are changes in care. But I think the idea is to know that you're seeking help, like our facility at least is very egalitarian. We honor everyone's experiences and cultures, and many of our therapists are from other places. I'm originally from New York, and we have other people from Ohio and other places. And so we know about just, you know, cultural awareness, and, you know, even in the sense that just knowing, like I was saying before, that I think if something's been created and people have skills and we acknowledge those things are God-given, that we can help each other. So I know that there are negative messages about help seeking, but we've really tried to be part of the solution, and some of our therapists incorporate faith in their treatment, and for people who want that. And, you know, sometimes it's just about behavior, you know, like going to the gym or, you know, taking a medication. It's just about changing behavior. And if you think that you might benefit from hiring somebody who has your best interest at heart, that's not a family member, not a friend, we're really just trained to be objective and help people with their problems, you know, and I think when those messages come from the faith community, they're really important.
That's great. Pastor Cathey, I'll come over to you with this one too. What are your thoughts when folks are in, obviously you have a predominantly African-American church. What are some of those nuances that you see and feel and hear from all of your members, and what do you think some of the reluctance might be to seek help, and how do we kind of overcome that?
Yeah, well, seeking mental health in our community has been sort of taboo, and we've been trying to overcome that. I think there's power in testimony. I was talking to a friend the other day who went to see an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I'm asking him for his ear, nose, and throat doctor's information, because when you've gone somewhere and you've been helped, to share that with somebody else as a possibility. Just like you go to a good restaurant, Jeff, you might point me in the right direction. So I think there's power in us sharing our story, sharing our successes, and not only that we are better, but how did we get better?
That's great. Pastor Jeff, you have anything to add?
Well, we've tried to develop a culture of it's okay to not be okay. And so we push people to, we have recovery on Sunday nights at 6, and it has about 100 people every week. It's free. But there are things that we aren't equipped to do in that setting, that we beg people to get counseling. I've gotten counseling. It saved my life. And so it's really, it doesn't make any sense with a community full of great people that do a great work at sitting down with you, an objective person, because a lot of people don't want to come to me and tell me everything. Now, a lot of people do, but some don't, because they don't want to see me every week and wonder if I'm thinking about the things they confessed. And so, you know, we encourage them, and then we have growth groups, and we have therapy groups on Sunday night. And so we have ways to take baby steps into community, because when you're really sick and broken, you're not ready for community that's like a Bible study. I mean, you need stepping stones to get there. And it took us years to figure this out, because we're reaching so many people addicted to drugs, been abused, you know, you go right, marital problems, you go down the list, and we needed a place for them to start from to get to the bigger community. And so it's just a culture that we have, that we've developed and designed because of the need of so many of the people we were reaching who were so broken that they weren't ready to be mainlined into a community of healthy people, because they would dominate it, or
Right.
very shamed because they think they're the only ones who are struggling.
Sure. And, and I think a lot of us, our first inclination, I think, is to rely on ourselves sometimes. Hey, we got, and I've heard my teenagers say that before. We got this. We've got this. Okay, you got it till you don't got it. Yeah. And then you may be in a bind. So I think a lot of folks do, kind of turn to that. I'm going to self-medicate. And that's easy to fall into those traps. So, okay, we've got one other really good question here. This is really a business related question. And of course, ADP is a business driven organization. So this is good. As business leaders, what advice will you share to build emotional resilience of our employees in this time? That's a really good question, because we're all grappling with that in the workplace. I've even seen, here at the ADP, everybody has different levels of sensitivity to the pandemic. Some people want to, wear masks all the time, even in their own office. Some people want their door closed. Some people want the door open, wear the mask. There are different levels of sensitivity associated with this, and everybody's dealing with it differently. But that whole resilience term kind of resonated with me. How do you build that? How do you help your team build an emotional resilience to be able to navigate through effectively?
Can I say something?
Sure.
We sat down with our team because I was terrified for them. And we laid out, one, we don't have any plans to fire you. Two, if you get sick, we have great hospitals, and some of my best friends are at the hospitals. We'll try to get you in front of the line. Three, we're going to phase you back in so that you don't have to panic, and that you can work from home and know that you're valuable. And then four, understand you're essential. What you're doing is changing our community. We have to have you well, and we need you working. And they actually bought all that.
Good. It's good advice. Does anybody else have some input there? They took it with a grain of salt, I'm sure, Jeff.
Yeah, I was very passionate about it.
We did something similar. I think that, a couple of key points are a group effort. You have to speak it. As an employer, you can't be silent. You can't not name the elephant in the room. You have got to acknowledge everyone's experiences, meet them where they're at. I think encouraging return to work, there's a concept called post-traumatic growth. We grow from trauma. We overcome trauma. We have been through Katrina and E4 tornado. We will get through the coronavirus. We have to slow down. We have to be more thoughtful. But I think really for companies and businesses that don't engender some community, I think that's extremely important right now. And I also think calling out when you see excessive emotional distress and referring out. Don't stay silent, and don't just think that it might go away, because the lack of access to healthcare and medication and just the unprecedented levels of stress has caused a lot of people to unravel, but it's fixable. It's completely fixable. So try to be optimistic, but proactive, I would say.
That's awesome. Guys, you guys have offered awesome advice today. I mean, how to, the faith side and the medical side, the psychology side. I mean, we've got to communicate. We've got to collaborate. We've got to have sympathy and empathy. And really, a way I put it too is understand someone else's plight and where they are, because they may be at a different place than you. In fact, they're different than you. We're all different. So I've enjoyed, I wish we could go on for about another 3 hours, like Jeff Clark said, but we can't. People are getting hungry. They're ready to go out to all of these great restaurants around town. And so I would just want to say, I want to thank all of our sponsors, panelists, and webinar participants today for helping make our June Accelerate program a resounding success. I hope that you found it to be as informative as I did, as we strive to enhance our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. I really feel like in Greater Hattiesburg and the Pine Belt and in Mississippi, I think our people are resilient. And that was a term used in one of the questions. Our people are resilient and will continue to shine in the days and weeks ahead. And I'm hopeful and prayerful and optimistic that we're going to emerge stronger post-COVID. And I'm also optimistic that we're going to work on our race relations. We're going to have more understanding for each other. We're going to care for each other. And look, I'll be honest, I wish everybody would look at my post that I put on LinkedIn about race relations from a godly perspective. It is really resonating with a lot of people. I think the thing has 15,000 views or something now. I hope it gets 15 million views, not for me and my social media likes and views, but I really think we need to communicate. We can't be communicating one-on-one with everybody every day, but through social media, let's use it wisely. And let's get messages out there that can really help people. So this has been awesome. My team wants me to roll through a few announcements. Alan, our Chamber of Commerce Division Chair, mentioned some of these, but we will start off with our legislative forum. It's Monday. So Monday, as in just a few days from now. So you've got to register today or tomorrow or Sunday, unless you're up at the crack of dawn Monday morning. So please go ahead and register for our legislative forum. You see the link at the bottom, theadp.com/calendar. We also have this out on our social media. It's on the website. So really, and it's in our rundown and our e-newsletter. If you're a member of the ADP, you get that e-blast. So please join. Next, I'm excited that Congressman Stephen Palazzo from our district here, our U.S. Congressman, will be our keynote speaker for the membership appreciation. As Alan said earlier, we think and we're hopeful and prayerful that this will be our first in-person event since COVID. And so please plan to join us. Now, pay close attention to this. You need to go ahead and register. Normally for an Accelerate membership appreciation event, registration wouldn't be necessary. It is necessary because, of course, we're going to adhere to all of the social distancing requirements. We're going to make sure that when we do in-person events, that they are very safe and everyone feels very comfortable. So please go ahead and register. You have to register to be able to attend the membership appreciation luncheon. That registration is live now. Okay, next, ADP Corporate Golf Challenge at Timberton, September 17th. I know in talking with my golf friends that I don't think golfers have really stopped during the pandemic, by the way. They shut down everything but the golf courses. So we're planning to proceed with our ADP Corporate Golf Challenge on September 17th at Timberton. There will be tee times at 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. And that's presented by Hattiesburg Coca-Cola. So we look forward to that fun, exciting, and I think everybody's going to look forward to a networking event, really, in person. So that will be awesome. Last but not least, we have a gift card program where, look, we still need to recruit and retain members at the ADP, and we want to serve our members. And I hope we served you well today with the panel discussion. But we've got an easy way for you to get a $100 gift card and for our member businesses to grow and prosper. So basically, the way it works is if you have a friend or a colleague or a business associate who you think could benefit from the programs and services of the ADP, call Ann Scott Mathis or email her at a.mathis@theadp.com. Let her know who that person or business is. Make the connection, make the referral. And if that business signs up or that individual signs up, then we will send you a $100 gift card to another ADP member restaurant or retailer of your choice. Thanks again, guys, for being with us today for our June Accelerate. We greatly appreciate your membership with our organization. We're here to serve you, and we hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you around soon.